Once the situation is sorted out, let's tie the knot again. All right. I was chilling on the stone bench in the mansion's courtyard, deep in thought, when Jake dragged Mia in front of me. Just a few hours back, Mia got snapped by paparazzi, rumored to be Jake's side chick. The whole web was digging into her history, labeling her the homewrecker who wrecked the sweet romance Jake and I had. A third wheel, a stranger, Jake's image as a loving hubby shattered overnight, and even his company's foundation started shaking. In my previous life, when Jake handed me divorce papers, I was so pissed off that I ripped up every rose he'd planted for me in the courtyard. I screamed hysterically, demanding the lowdown on his fling with Mia. She was clearly just his benefactor's kid. There were tons of ways he could have handled it, but he chose to sacrifice me just to stop Mia's depression from getting worse. What Jake didn't know was that, while the scandal was blowing up online, I was also diagnosed with moderate depression. Autumn. Jake called my name again, pulling me out of my trance. I looked down and stared at the divorce papers lying on the stone table. Jake knelt at my feet, his intense eyes looking up at me. His warm hands held mine. His voice had a soothing tone. Autumn, do this for me. All right. We'll tell everyone our marriage was just for show a year ago, but we hadn't found the right moment to announce it. I didn't answer right away. Behind him, Mia stood in a white dress, wrapped in Jake's jacket. Her lips were pale, and her eyes were red-rimmed. Sister Autumn, please help me. All right, she begged. My mom took her own life because of online bullying. I don't want to follow in her footsteps. Please, I'll even get on my knees and beg you. She was about to kneel when Jake quickly stood up, holding her and pulling her into his arms protectively. His face darkened as he scolded her softly. What are you doing? Mia flinched, her voice shaky and tearful as she looked up at him with watery eyes. I just wanted Sister Autumn to feel better. Jake's patience visibly drained, turning to me. The kindness in his demeanor vanished completely. Autumn, I'm not here to negotiate. I've already decided. If you refuse to sign, don't blame me for what happens next. I met his gaze calmly. He went silent, but I knew what he was about to say. I was aware of how far he'd go. He'd find endless ways to make me comply. If it came to a lawsuit, I couldn't win against his company's lawyers. That's exactly what he'd said in my past life. Later, I was framed and photographed in compromising situations with male models, with dirt that painted me as a cheater. Overnight, I became a public disgrace, shamed worldwide, while he and Mia acted like innocent victims. I'll sign, I said after a long pause, but you gotta agree to one thing. Jake glanced at me quickly and nodded. He handed me the pen and I took it, my expression totally calm as I signed my name on the divorce papers. You're not gonna read the agreement first? Jake frowned at me. I gave a slight smile. No need. The terms were basically a clean break. He was giving up all the assets to me, leaving with nada, all of this. Just to protect Mia and repay her family's kindness. Let's hit up the Civil Affairs Bureau tomorrow, I said. All right, he replied. For a moment, his hand holding the divorce papers hesitated. His eyes showed a bit of confusion, but he stayed silent. As they left, Mia glanced back at me with a mocking smirk. Her lips moved silently, but I could clearly catch her words. You've lost. I had indeed lost everything in my life. But now, I didn't want to lose again. Half an hour later, my phone buzzed with a message from Jake. Autumn, sorry you had to go through this today. Once this blows over, I'll throw you a grand wedding banquet, and we'll remarry. I couldn't just stand by and watch Mia's depression get worse. You get me, right? I read his words and couldn't help but laugh, though tears welled up in my eyes. It was just like the last life. Jake had gotten drunk with his buddies, trying to come up with a plan to force me into divorce. What he forgot was his friends were also my friends. One of them, Ryan, had tried convincing me to understand Jake, saying he was a man of deep loyalty and gratitude. He explained how Mia's dad had seen Jake's talents, invested in him, and helped him start his business. Without Mia's family, Jake wouldn't have achieved his success. I had cried as I fired back. Jake could have cleared things up in countless ways. Why did it have to be divorce? Ryan had gone quiet, admitting he'd asked Jake the same thing. Jake's answer was, someone has to get screwed over. Autumn will understand because she loves me. How ridiculous. Because I loved him, I had to sacrifice myself. Luckily, I still had a shot now. When it came to Mia, Jake always moved fast. That same afternoon, after signing the divorce papers, he set up a press conference for the evening. He even had his assistant invite me to attend and clear things up. Before I could respond, the assistant, thinking I'd say no, relayed Jake's words to me. Miss Autumn, you should attend this press conference, even if it's not for Mr. Jake. It's for your reputation. I paused for a moment, then let out a bitter laugh. Jake was threatening me, using the same tactics as before to force me into submission. He wanted to trash me and make me struggle under public scrutiny until I had no choice but to bow down. I never got it. Did Jake see me as his wife or his enemy? This time, he wanted to publicly clear our relationship, and I was no different. The press conference was held in the grand ballroom of the swankiest hotel in town. The invited journalists were all big shots in the industry, and when Mia showed up arm in arm with Jake, dressed in an elegant cheapao, the reporters swarmed around them instantly. Jake instinctively shielded her, smiling as he gently blocked the mics aimed at her. Please, give us some space. I'll answer your questions one by one shortly, he said, his voice calm and polite, looking up. His eyes met mine amidst the crowd of reporters. For a split second, I foolishly hoped he might step in to shield me too. But the next second, he looked away, his expression unchanged, his smile steady. He led Mia onto the stage as if he hadn't seen me at all. I scoffed, curling my lips into a bitter smile. A young reporter, probably an intern, nervously handed me a microphone and asked, Miss Autumn, is it true that you've divorced Mr. Jake? Yes, I smiled, nodding calmly. The intern pushed his glasses up, pressing further. But you and Mr. Jake were high school sweethearts, dated for 7 years, and married for 5. Just last month, he even spent a fortune buying an island and naming it after you. How could you divorce so suddenly? I kept my smile, though it no longer reached my eyes. That island was something he owed me. I replied, to care for Mia during her illness. Jake missed my birthday and didn't prepare my gift. In my past life, I'd been over the moon about the island, only to later find out it was Ryan's idea. Jake didn't even know where the island was. The intern hesitated before timidly asking, Do you still love Mr. Jake? Silence fell around us. Every reporter nearby stopped talking, waiting for my answer. Even Jake, standing on the stage, turned his gaze toward me, his brows slightly furrowing. I met his eyes briefly before turning back to the intern and answered without hesitation, no. The interview didn't last much longer. After Jake publicly clarified that our marriage had been effectively over for a year, he left the venue. Overnight, I became the discarded item in the eyes of the public. Meanwhile, Mia was hailed as the innocent victim of the whole scandal. The interview from that day stayed pinned at the top of social media for days. And the topic kept trending. Jake's words during the press conference fanned the flames. Autumn and I had already planned to divorce a year ago. We were trying to handle it quietly, but now that innocent people are involved, we had to clear things up publicly. Mia isn't a third wheel in our relationship. She's the only person my mentor cares about in this world, and it's natural for me to take care of her. I hope everyone can see this rationally. Fans were quick to twist the story, claiming the reason my marriage with Jake fell apart was my inability to handle even the tiniest flaw. They painted their so-called pure sibling bond as something noble, while portraying me as petty and lacking grace. They said I hadn't learned a single thing from Jake's loyalty and gratitude after 5 years of marriage. The topic kept fermenting for days, making me the villain of the story. After finalizing the divorce certificate, as I stepped out of the Civil Affairs Bureau, Jake stopped me. Don't take what people are saying online to heart. It won't be long before they forget all about it. I paused, unable to hold back a faint laugh. Funny, huh? We're both getting attacked online, but the treatment is so different. Jake didn't respond, but his expression tightened. Autumn in 2 months. It'll be New Year's once the year starts. Let's remarry. All right. He stepped closer, his gaze intense, but I took a step back. Keeping my tone cool as I glanced toward the reporters being held back by security nearby, Jake seemed to realize his mistake and stopped moving. I'm heading back to Harbor City, I said. It's been a while since you've been back. Maybe it's a good idea, he replied. When New Year's comes, I'll pick you up and bring you home. I cut him off before he could finish. Jake, when I agreed to sign the divorce papers, you promised me one thing. It's time you kept your word. Jake's smile froze on his face, his eyes clouded with confusion. I want you to never show up in front of me again, I said with a smile, and as I turned to leave, disappearing into the crowd, Jake stood frozen, unable to process my words. For a brief moment, I saw panic flash across his face, a fear like he was about to lose something he cherished most. It was the same unease he felt when I calmly signed the divorce papers without a fight. Back then, he'd expected me to scream, cry, and make a scene, just like I had in the past. He'd even prepared ways to handle my outburst. But I didn't. I picked up the pen with a calm expression, signed my name, and walked away. At that moment, he felt a fleeting urge to stop me. But in the end, he did nothing, telling himself it didn't matter. Autumn loved him deeply. After all, this was just a fake divorce. He could always make it up to me later, but Mia was different. He couldn't let her get hurt in any way. Years ago, it was Mia's dad who saw potential in him and risked alienating other shareholders to invest in Jake's project. That decision had elevated Jake to his current status as one of the city's rising elites. Before Mia's dad passed away, he made Jake promise to take care of Mia and ensure her well-being. Jake couldn't bear to betray that trust. Ryan once asked Jake, if one day both Mia and Autumn were to fall off a cliff, who would you save? Jake had laughed then, dismissing the question as absurd. I'd save Mia, of course, but I'd also die with Autumn. Ryan had laughed along, but added, what if Autumn doesn't want to die? Jake, you can't use her love for you to keep hurting her like this. If she ever stops feeling your love, she'll lose hope. Second, Jake hadn't taken those words seriously at the time, brushing them off without a second thought. He didn't realize how prophetic they would become. That night, Jake returned to the mansion. After marrying Jake, I had always lived in the mansion halfway up the hill. I was an exceptional artist, celebrated as a prodigy from age 10, when my ethereal landscape paintings captivated audiences and earned me the title of a young genius in traditional Chinese painting. Everyone believed I had an extraordinary talent in this art form and would eventually become a leading figure in the field, and I did. But after our marriage, my own artistic style changed drastically. My works no longer held the same allure they once did. My mentor tried tirelessly to guide me, but it didn't help much. Eventually, I gave up painting altogether, even rejecting the idea of picking up a brush. Jake stepped into my art studio and froze when his eyes landed on the landscape painting on the easel. With just a few strokes, the scene came to life, vivid and mesmerizing. Seeing the light on in the studio, Mrs. Lee came in, startled to find Jake there. Sir, she said hesitantly, this painting, it's something Madame worked on. Jake looked up. When did she paint this? It was the day you brought Miss Mia home, Mrs. Lee replied. Jake nodded slightly. He tried to smile, but no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't. Leaving the studio, he returned to the bedroom we shared. He'd told himself countless times that this was just a temporary divorce. Once the storm settled, he'd propose to me again, throw me the grand wedding I deserved, and make everything right. But somehow, his heart always felt empty. The words I'd said earlier that day, he brushed them off as things I had said in anger. In his mind, there was no way I wouldn't return to the home we built together. The knock on the master bedroom door broke the silence. Sitting at the edge of the bed, Jake looked up to see Mia standing at the door. She was wearing a thin dress, her cheeks faintly flushed, gazing at him quietly. Why are you here? He asked. Mia bit her lip before answering softly. I was scared being alone at the hotel, so I came to find you. Am I? Am I bothering you? So I came to find you. Am I? Am I bothering you? Jake frowned slightly but still said, It's cool. It's late. I'll ask Mrs. Lee to set up a guest room for you. Stay here tonight. As he reached for his phone to call Mrs. Lee, Mia stepped into the room, her delicate eyes filled with watery tenderness, looking up at him. Jake, she said softly, I don't want to stay in the guest room. Is that all right? His frown deepened, his lips parting as if to refuse. But when he saw her reddened eyes, he hesitated. Eventually, his resolve faltered. By the time the plane landed in Harbor City, it was Max who came to pick me up. Years ago, when he was 18, Max had saved a girl only to be falsely accused of assault. He was sentenced to 3 years in prison, with a criminal record. No company was willing to hire him. I first met him at an art exhibition. He never spoke to anyone, always keeping his head down. Whenever someone approached, he'd timidly back away. One night, as I was on my way home, I ran into a group of thugs and almost became a victim. Max happened to pass by. I thought he'd turn a blind eye, but he didn't. Without hesitation, he stepped in to save me. Later, I asked him, "What if I had turned on you just like the others?" He gave me a bitter smile and said, "Then so be it." Using my family's influence, I cleared his name and brought the truth to light. The day his innocence was proven, he stood in the distance, looking at me through teary eyes, bowing deeply in gratitude. 3 years in prison hadn't erased his kindness. After my dad saved Max and extended a hand to help him, he arranged for Max to join our company, starting from the bottom. Now Max is my dad's most reliable assistant. It's been a long time. "Mississippi?" Max said, dressed in a trench coat, casually taking my suitcase. I nodded, my nose stinging with an inexplicable sadness. 5 years ago, when I married Jake and followed him north, Max had been sent by my dad to Country A for an intensive training program. In my previous life, I never saw Max again before my death. "Mississippi, are you planning to leave again after this visit?" Max asked. I shook my head. "No, I'm staying." He smiled faintly. "Mr. Lee was really happy to hear you're back." "Mississippi?" Hearing that name, my hand clenched in my pocket, bitterness washing over me. Back then, when news of my divorce with Jake spread far and wide, my dad, worried I'd suffer, flew overnight from Harbor City to the capital. He tried to persuade me earnestly. Jake always does things that are unclear and indecisive. Back then, he was willing to work with that old man from Mia's family, but refused your help. If he didn't want to rely on you, fine. But wasn't he still relying on their investment? "Autumn, just let the divorce happen. Jake isn't right for you." He wanted to take me back to Harbor City, but I refused. I cried, fought, and begged to stay. Through tears, I told him, "I love Jake. I don't want a divorce. Why should I sacrifice myself to fulfill his sense of gratitude? Even if it kills me, I won't leave him." In the end, I didn't go. My dad was so pissed that he had a heart attack and was rushed to the ICU. We received multiple critical notices overnight, and my mom's hair turned white in a single night. When my dad finally woke up, he didn't say a word to me, but I knew he was deeply disappointed. Even on her deathbed, my mom tried to reason with me. "Your dad has never interfered with any of your decisions, but Jake isn't a good match for you." But I wouldn't listen. I stubbornly chased what I wanted, crashing into a wall repeatedly until it cost me my life. Only then did I realize that I wasn't as important to Jake as I thought. "Are they doing well?" I asked Max. He nodded. "The company is thriving, and both Mr. and Mrs. Lee are in good health." I smiled faintly, meeting his calm gaze. "Thank you, Max. Thanks for taking care of my parents for me." He shook his head. "It's my duty. If it hadn't been for you and Mr. Lee helping me back then, I'd have died in some dark corner a long time ago." The trending topics on social media kept spiraling. What started as rumors of Mia being Jake's mistress had now turned into claims that I was heartless and unfaithful. Yesterday, paparazzi had snapped Max and Mia at the airport, fueling rumors that I was cheating on Jake, which was the real reason our marriage fell apart. I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. When I looked down at my phone, I saw a message from Mia's private account. She'd sent me a photo of herself from last night, staying at the mansion. It came with a message. "Jake invited me to stay overnight. What do you think he'll do tonight? Jake is a responsible man, but now the shackles are gone. Autumn, your husband is mine now." She was clearly trying to provoke me, but my heart was already numb to such things. Max handed me a cup of tea, glancing worriedly at my phone screen before saying calmly, "Mississippi, I'll make sure you get justice for all the wrongs you've endured." I didn't respond to his words. Instead, I asked, "I heard my dad introduced you to several socialites and encouraged you to start a family. Why did you refuse?" Max froze, caught off guard by my question. His hands trembled slightly as he adjusted the teacup, staying silent for a long time. Pressing on, "Is it because of me?" His gaze flickered nervously as he met mine for a fleeting moment before looking away again. Over the past 5 years, although we hadn't seen each other, Max had never failed to send me extravagant birthday gifts. He'd even transfer large sums of money to my account from time to time, practically giving me everything he earned. I'd refused his gestures countless times, but he stayed persistent. One day I called him, and for the first time, lost my cool with him. I told Max, "You saved my life once, and I helped you once. That makes us even. My dad brought you into the company, and everything you've achieved today is because of your own efforts. You don't owe me anything. I'm not your creditor. What you're doing only damages my marriage, making Jake misunderstand our relationship." After that conversation, Max stopped transferring money to me. His gifts became more measured, no longer extravagant. "Max, I've told you before, you don't owe me anything," I said again. He bit his lip as if hesitating, then replied, "That's not why." He looked at me, his lips curving into a faint smile, his eyes filled with sincerity. "I love you, Miss Autumn. I know there's a world of difference between us, like mud and clouds. I've never dared to hope you'd look back at me, but my heart belongs to you. I don't want to deceive myself, nor do I want to hold anyone else back." As Max's words trailed off, I raised my gaze to quietly study him. We were the same age, yet he had matured way earlier than me. When I first met him, he was timid and out of place. Now, he was a pillar of the company and my dad's most trusted confidant. Last night, after returning to the old house, my dad talked with me for a long time. He discussed the company's future, my future. Then he asked me 2 questions. The first was, "Do you still love Jake?" I shook my head and answered, "No," without hesitation. But when he asked the second question, I fell silent. "Would you consider marrying Max?" My dad had been planning his retirement, although Max had been by his side for years. He wasn't a member of our family. I had been unsure at first, but now I knew the answer. "Max, will you marry me?" 2 days later in the Capitol, Jake sat in the art studio. His head bowed as he replayed the clip of my interview with the intern. "Do you still love Mr. Jake?" the intern had asked. I smiled and answered no. 3 simple words, yet they left him feeling inexplicably stifled. He'd replayed that moment countless times, as if trying to glean something from my expression but found nothing. Frustrated, he exited our chat window, but as he opened it, he realized our last exchange was from the day I reminded him to meet me at 9 a.m. at the Civil Affairs Bureau to finalize our divorce certificate. He had simply replied, "Finalize our divorce certificate." And that was it. In the past, I had loved clinging to him, sharing every little detail of my life. He'd always responded promptly, but scrolling back through our chat history, he noticed how, over time, it became mostly one-sided. I'd been talking to myself, and his occasional replies were nothing more than okay or got it. He'd been too busy with work at the company. After Mia's dad passed away, her depression had worsened, and she had attempted suicide multiple times. He'd been consumed by trying to manage everything and hadn't been able to focus on me. Suddenly, Ryan sent him a message. "Autumn is marrying Max." Jake shot to his feet in shock, accidentally knocking over a message. "Autumn is marrying Max." Jake shot to his feet in shock, accidentally knocking over a nearby easel. The landscape painting on it fluttered to the floor. As he bent down to pick it up, a medical report slipped out from underneath the painting. He froze for 2 seconds. When he finished reading the report, his fingertips trembled slightly. The patient exhibits severe emotional instability, with recurring suicidal thoughts. Severe sleep disturbances were noted. The patient displayed signs of moderate depression. The date at the bottom of the diagnosis, the very day Jake proposed divorce to me. "Jake, what's going on?" Mia, hearing the commotion, rushed into the studio from the master bedroom. When she saw the diagnosis report in Jake's hands, a calculating glint flashed in her eyes. "May I take a look at that?" she asked softly. Jake said nothing, but his chest tightened painfully. Mia took the report from him without resistance. Flipping through a few pages before feigning relief, she patted his shoulder lightly and said, "Don't worry, Jake. Remember, I'm also a depression patient. You've seen how bad it can get during my episodes, but that day, I saw Autumn. She looked perfectly healthy, not at all like someone suffering from an illness. Maybe she was just too upset and fabricated this report to get your attention." Mia was about to continue, but Jake, suppressing his emotions, took the report back from her hands. He walked a few steps away, his mind racing, before abruptly turning to her. "Starting tomorrow, don't stay in the master bedroom anymore," he said flatly. "If Autumn finds out, it'll cause unnecessary trouble." Mia froze in place, stunned by the time she snapped out of it and tried to follow him, calling out, "Jake!" He had already gone downstairs, hurriedly leaving without even taking his coat. At that moment, Jake didn't care whether the report was real or not, or whether I was truly marrying Max. The only thought in his mind was to find me and bring me back home. Max, on the other hand, had been meticulously involved in every detail of our wedding preparations. During the day, he managed company affairs and supervised the wedding arrangements. At night, he sat in the living room, carefully writing out invitations by hand. "Autumn, you don't need to handle all these things yourself. Let your assistant take care of it. You're already working so hard. No need to exhaust yourself further." I stood at the top of the stairs, holding a cup of tea, looking down at him in the living room. He set down his pen and gave me a warm smile. "No matter what it is, I want to give you the best. Autumn, I know I may not hold a place in your heart, but you've always been at the center of mine." For a moment, as our gazes met, I felt a flicker of emotion stir within me, something I hadn't felt in a long time. "Max, you don't need to feel burdened by this. Just focus on being a beautiful bride," he added with a soft laugh. His eyes, though calm, no longer hid the depth of his feelings. I smiled faintly and nodded, but I hadn't expected Jake to show up in Harbor City. Max and I had just stepped out of the fitting room after trying on our wedding attire when I saw Jake standing under a camphor tree across the street. He wore a simple white shirt. His hair was slightly messy. His face was pale and lacked its usual vitality. His gaze lingered on my hand clasped with Max's before he looked away. Jake forced a weak smile and said, "Autumn, I've come to take you home. We don't have to wait until next year. Let's remarry now." "All right." As he took a few steps toward us, Max instinctively moved to stand in front of me, but I stopped him with a gentle touch, adjusting his slightly crooked tie. I said softly, "Go wait in the car for me. I'll join you shortly. Mom's made your favorite dish tonight. We'll head home together later." Max lowered his eyes to meet mine, his lips curling into a faint smile. "All right." He cast a calm glance at Jake before turning and walking toward the car. Now, it was just Jake and me by the roadside. He instinctively tried to come closer, but I subtly stepped back, keeping my tone gentle. "Mr. Jake, let's keep some distance between us. Otherwise, if the paparazzi catch us, social media will be flooded with stories about how I'm clinging to my ex-husband again. No matter the time or place, I can't afford another scandal. People are always especially harsh on women. The situation with Mia was a prime example. From start to finish, it was Jake who failed to handle things properly, yet, in the end, I was the one accused of being petty and lacking grace." "Autumn," Jake's eyes dimmed as a bitter smile tugged at his lips, though it didn't reach his eyes. "I've asked my assistant to handle the situation on the platform. I'm sorry you had to endure this. I didn't realize how much trouble it caused you." "Didn't realize?" I looked at him and replied calmly, "Jake, if you didn't know how much public opinion could hurt someone, you wouldn't have chosen to divorce me just to protect Mia. In my previous life, after being falsely accused of cheating with multiple male models, I was publicly shamed and divorced by Jake. My career tanked, and I became everyone's laughingstock. Some even mocked me to my face, saying, 'Autumn, after everything your ex-husband put you through, how do you even have the guts to keep living? If I were you, I'd have jumped off an 18-story building by now.' I couldn't sleep at night. I'd sit by the floor-to-ceiling windows, staring at the city lights. I burned down my studio and destroyed everything Jake had ever given me, as if that could somehow erase him from my heart. I vented all my frustration, hating how the boy who once loved me with all his heart had pushed me to the edge. In the end, I slit my wrists. To this day, I can still remember the feeling of my life slipping away, drop by drop. Jake opened his mouth to explain, but no words came out. Eventually, he could only bow his head weakly. "Autumn, I'll make it up to you," he said softly. I couldn't hold back a laugh. I've heard that too many times. After Mia's dad passed away, Jake left our engagement dinner halfway through, saying, Mia's having a problem. I need to check on her. On our wedding day, Mia's having a problem. I need to check on her. On our wedding day, Mia attempted suicide. After dropping me off at our bridal suite, Jake stayed with her all night. I wavered then, questioning if I should continue this relationship. But seeing how exhausted he looked, I swallowed my doubts. I loved Jake, so I was willing to endure all the hardships alongside him. Every broken promise was met with the same response. Autumn, I'll make it up to you. Jake always thought we had a lifetime together, but he forgot that love can wear down. By the end of my previous life, I couldn't tell if I still loved him or if it was just an obsession. I scoffed and said, Jake, I've asked for so little, but even that's too much for you. I'm my parents' beloved daughter, too. Why should I let you trample all over me? Let's just end this. As I finished speaking, I turned to leave. Jake. Panicking, he grabbed my arm. His unsteady body nearly stumbled, and his pale lips trembled as he spoke. I won't agree to this. I can't just let it go. Autumn, you're my wife. You can't leave me? His voice quivered. I pulled my arm free and laughed softly. Jake, we're already divorced. You forced me to sign the divorce papers, pressured me to attend the press conference to clarify things, and even made sure I went to the Civil Affairs Bureau to finalize it. You can't deny that, can you? Jake froze. As I began to walk away again, I tilted my head slightly toward him. Jake, you and Mia actually make a great pair. His face turned ashen instantly. He had arrived in Harbor City in the middle of the night after his assistant tracked down my itinerary. He hadn't rested a moment before rushing to find me, but when he saw me, wearing a wedding dress and laughing with Max, he stopped in his tracks. Standing under the camphor tree, he watched in silence. He couldn't remember the last time he had seen me smile so genuinely. Whenever we were together, it always ended in arguments about Mia. Gradually, he stopped coming home, either staying at the office or drinking all night with his friends. At that moment, he understood with absolute clarity that what I had said at the Civil Affairs Bureau that day was heartfelt. I didn't want him anymore. But he couldn't live without me. Inside the bridal boutique, Max and I continued our preparations, unaware of the man standing outside watching quietly. How long had he stood there? Even Jake didn't know. All he felt was the sharp pain of realizing he might have lost me forever. He stood outside for who knows how long. At one point, he even considered barging in and punching Max, warning him to stay away from his wife. But in the end, he couldn't take that step. He was afraid of how Mia might view him. Jake, Autumn left a while ago, Mia murmured, tugging on Jake's sleeve and pulling him out of his daze. He lowered his eyes to look at her, his voice cold and slightly hoarse. Why are you here? I heard Autumn is marrying someone else. I was worried you'd be upset, so I came to check on you, she said softly. Just as she reached out to hug him, Jake frowned and pressed a hand firmly on her shoulder to stop her. For a moment, his eyes glistened, and Mia's voice became shaky. Jake, Autumn doesn't want you anymore, but I do. Let's get married. All right. Jake had never denied her anything before. She had always assumed that after Autumn divorced him, she'd naturally take the position of Mrs. Jake. But now, Jake's expression turned icy. Mia, do you even know what you're saying? I do, Jake. I love you, she said, confessing her feelings for the first time. Jake let out a pale, bitter smile. But the more he smiled, the closer he came to tears. Ryan had warned him countless times. Mia's feelings for you aren't right, Jake. If you can't keep her in check, she'll ruin your marriage. You should send her away before it's too late. But Jake never believed him. Now he realized how blind he'd been. Harbor City was far from the capital, but once something hit social media, it didn't take long for it to spiral. On the third day of Jake's attempts to reconcile with me, Max sent him proof that Mia had falsified my medical report. Max also compiled evidence of how Jake had repeatedly prioritized Mia over me, even at the expense of his career. The evidence was released online, forming a damning narrative. Overnight, public opinion became sharply divided, but it no longer concerned me. Some accused Mia of repaying kindness with betrayal, ruining my marriage and causing its collapse. Others criticized Jake for his hypocrisy, questioning why he couldn't repay Mia's father's kindness with money or resources instead of tormenting his wife to the point of despair and divorce. Jake's reputation tanked and his company's stock wavered. Not long after, I uncovered evidence that Mia had staged photos of her and Jake entering a hotel together. She had even hired online trolls to insult herself as a mistress to evoke sympathy. Max released this evidence as well, turning social media into a chaotic battleground. Jake, overwhelmed, reached his breaking point. He planned to send Mia abroad, but after seeing the trending topic, he nearly strangled her to death on the side of the road. "Why did you do it?" he demanded furiously. First, Mia tried to play the emotional card, but when his grip tightened and she could barely breathe, she suddenly burst into hysterical laughter and admitted, "Yes, I wanted to be Mrs. Jake. I wanted Autumn out of the picture. Jake, if you truly loved her, I wouldn't have had a chance to interfere." Jake, consumed by rage, vomited blood on the spot and collapsed. A bystander captured the scene on video, and it quickly went viral online. Jake's company's stock plummeted further, and he was removed from his position as CEO. As for Mia, her reputation was utterly destroyed, leaving her no choice but to leave the country. But fate was unkind. On her way to the airport, she was involved in a fatal car accident. On my wedding day, Max gave me a grand ceremony, with flowers filling the city and fireworks lighting up the night. It became everyone's talk. When a guest jokingly remarked that marrying Max must have been the result of good karma in my past life, Max let out a cold laugh and immediately had them escorted out of the venue. During his wedding vows, Max spoke openly. "I am nothing more than the Lee family's live-in son-in-law. In this life, I belong to the Lee family, and in death, I'll be a ghost of the Lee family." Though my heart might not have entirely belonged to Max, his unwavering devotion to me never faltered. On our wedding night, he held me tightly, as if afraid I might leave or vanish. It wasn't until I pressed him for answers that I learned Jake had taken his own life. Before his death, he regained clarity for a brief moment. He sent Max the medical report I had left behind in the studio, along with a letter addressed to me. The letter was long, every word drenched in guilt. He described a nightmare he had. In the dream, he forced me to divorce him, and when I refused to compromise, he schemed against me and set me up, sending me to the beds of several men. In the end, I was so desperate that I slit my wrists and ended my life. He wrote that the Jake in the dream didn't intend to drive me to such despair. He only wanted me to bow my head and give in. He never imagined it would result in my death. Most of all, he confessed that he didn't know my illness was real. He swore that if he had known, he would never ever have treated me that way. He wrote about how, in the dream, when he saw the blood covering the bathroom floor, his heart shattered. He wished he could have been the one to die instead. The letter ended with 2 sentences. "Thankfully, the events in the dream didn't happen. I'm sorry." I let out a cold laugh as I read it. In the end, I casually tossed the letter into the trash, along with the medical report. Max frowned slightly. "Mississippi," he murmured. I responded softly. The old Autumn was sick, but I'm not that person anymore. Leaving him cured me. After a long pause, Max's frown gave way to a resigned but affectionate smile. I looked at him and smiled back. Thankfully, in this life, I lost nothing.